Hello, and welcome to Orchestra for our virtual curriculum night. My name is Catherine Sartori, and I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade orchestra at Washington Middle School. I went to Washington State University, go Cougs. I'm a national board certified educator. I've taught at WMS since December 2009, and I'm also currently teaching at McKinney and Centennial Elementaries. I've also taught at Reeves Middle School and Lincoln Elementary in the past. I'm also a member of the first violin section in the Olympia Symphony Orchestra, and when I'm not playing violin or teaching, you can find me knitting, swing dancing, or hanging out with my cat. This year, we are very lucky to have Miss Jeannie Chung returning to student teach with us. She's a former violinist in the Tacoma Youth Symphony. Miss Chung is finishing up her studies at Pacific Lutheran University this year. Given the COVID shutdowns last spring, her student teaching was deferred to this semester, and we're very lucky to have her back to work with us again, and we hope to be able to help her finish her certification process this semester. Ensemble musicianship looks pretty different in distance learning than it did with in-person schooling, but we're still learning and growing as musicians, and there are lots of opportunities to address new and different skills and content than we might normally get to do in a typical school year. We have a short new tune each week, something that all instruments can play together in unison so that we can all work on building core skills together. I'm assigning short duets and rounds for these weekly tunes so that students can play in harmony with another musician's recording, either mine or their own or a peer's. And that helps to keep their ensemble playing skills in shape and offers some of the enjoyment of playing along with other musicians, even while we can't play all together as an orchestra. Over the summer, as music educators nationwide discussed the absence of contributions by people of color in performance repertoire, I noticed that absence in our music library and in the music textbooks that I learned from when I was a student. So to remedy that, in addition to learning about all the time-honored composers of Western classical music, we'll also be looking at music from a book called Music by Black Composers. There's some really great tunes and history in that book that I'm really excited to share with students this year. In a typical year, we do much of our work via daily repetition and daily rehearsal, working toward a single performance with occasional playing tests to assess individual performance. While the time-sensitive pressure of concerts is on hold until large gatherings are permitted again, students are now making weekly videos on Flipgrid. This allows me to give them individualized feedback much more frequently than before, and the work that students do in preparing recordings that precisely line up with other recordings is similar to what studio musicians are asked to do. Those are the musicians that record soundtracks for movies and commercials and professional recordings. So I'm excited that our students get to explore some of that this year. So, as I said, some different things this year than with in-person schooling, but also some really neat opportunities to be had while we're in distance learning. That individualized feedback that I mentioned shows up in the grades tab on your student's Schoology page. In the center column, you can see what your student's turn-in status is with various assignments, whether that something is incomplete or complete or entirely missing. I will take late work. Just have your student contact me if they anticipate needing more time on a project. It may take me a little bit to get submitted assignments graded. So thank you in advance to you and your student as I figure out pacing and rhythms this quarter. In the far right column is where I give feedback on specific assignments and playing technique. I always tell students what they demonstrated well and what to work on next to continue building their skills and technique. I don't like using the language of good or bad playing. As musicians, we're never done improving. It's always what skills did I show and what do I need to do next to upgrade my playing to the next level. Under the Materials tab is where students can find their sheet music and assignments. The most recent assignments will always be at the top, with the sheet music folder right below that. Gone are the days of I lost my music, or I forgot my folder at school, or I forgot my folder at home. The electronic copy of the sheet music is always right there on the Materials page of their Orchestra Schoology page. Below that folder are other older assignments that have already passed by, and I leave those there in case students need to go back to complete late work, or if they want to go back and revisit something that we worked on in the past. On the updates page, you can find the schedule showing where and when I'm available to do instrument maintenance. This could mean tuning, adding finger tapes to your student's instrument, cleaning strings, adjusting a bridge or chin rest. I can also hand out hard copies of the sheet music if your student prefers a paper copy to reading it off a screen. If your student needs help at a time that I'm not available there on that list, just email me and we can set up an appointment for another time. Or you can visit any of the other orchestra teachers who are available at other schools at other times. There's a little grid there that shows the times and dates that other teachers are available at other schools. Whoever and whenever you visit, it's helpful if you email them ahead of time so they can be sure to have the right materials prepared to help your student and their instrument. So each weekly assignment consists of 2 halves, a Google form that shows up in Schoology and a Flipgrid recording. To complete the Google form half, students should answer all the questions on that form and then scroll to the very bottom of the Google form and click the big submit button. Then it gets sent directly to me and I can grade it and input that in the grade book. To complete their Flipgrid recording, students should click on the record a response button. There are several options. They both do the same thing. Students should perform their piece then for the recording and keep the window open while the video is uploading. Once the upload is complete, a picture of the student's video will appear in the list of class submissions. You can see my examples there. Those are videos that I've completed as samples for students to practice along with. During our Zoom classes, there's some things that we need to do to be able to have a successful rehearsal. The picture there is sort of what a Zoom classroom looks like, but it's actually a picture of the Olympia Symphony Orchestra. See if you can find Miss Sartori in there. I do ask that students unpack, set up, and tune before class if possible, though if they need to do those things right at the beginning of class, that's all right. I also ask students to keep their video on if at all possible. Even with the time delay between computers, being able to see how students are playing is one of the few ways that I can give them quick, meaningful feedback during rehearsal. Leaving the video off is kind of like asking a doctor for help, but not telling them any of your symptoms. They can give you much better treatment if they know more detail about what's going on. That said, if having the video on causes your student's device to freeze or crash, absolutely they are welcome to leave the video off. Just help your student make choices to help them have the best learning possible, experience possible, given technology and time delay and things like that. Because of the varying time lag between all the different devices in a Zoom class and the way Zoom's audio algorithms prioritize different sounds, I ask that students leave their mics muted and just play along with my sound. At times, I might invite students to unmute individually to demonstrate an excerpt or invite them to unmute to share a comment. But in general, during orchestra Zoom rehearsals, you will likely just hear my sound and your student's sound playing during an orchestra class, not the full orchestra sound. I usually keep the chat box restricted so that comments that students type only go to me. That way students can stay focused and can ask questions freely without being embarrassed. Occasionally though, when we're having classroom discussions, I may open up the chat box for students to see each other's comments. And when I do that, I just ask that they keep their comments school appropriate, of course. With the variable ability level in each class, I aim to help students find a comfortable level of challenge for each exercise or piece that we're doing. If something I'm doing seems too difficult for a student, I ask that they simplify it by maybe plucking instead of bowing, or just catching the very beginning and ending of what we're playing, or letting me know if they'd like me to go through it slower. If something seems too easy for them, I ask students to try still playing along with us, but playing it in a round, starting after me, or playing while focusing on advanced techniques such as vibrato, or bow hand articulation, or playing in alternate positions, while we all still work on the same song together. I don't think of any piece as boring. I feel like boredom is choosing not to use that time to upgrade your playing skill. So if your student is complaining of feeling over or under challenged, let me know and we can schedule a one-on-one Zoom session, not as a punishment, but just to help them find a musical workout plan to help them stay comfortably challenged with the music that we're working on in class. Above all, I ask that everyone offer an abundance of grace and patience to one another as we all figure things out, to support and celebrate each other as we grow in our musical and technological skills, and to communicate to celebrate successes and needs. There are so many things that can be frustrating about distance learning, and a kind word goes a really long way. So this year, we don't need to worry about concert clothes or things like that. Concerts are on hold until we can have large gatherings again. But here are some ways that you can help your string student to be successful this year. Make sure they are set up correctly with space and materials they need to participate successfully in orchestra. It can be really challenging in a household with numerous family members, but if possible, help your student to find a quiet space during class or during their recording sessions, and help them to align their laptop, their music, their body, and their instrument in such a way that they can play in a healthy position for a sustained period of time. Sometimes in videos, I see students curled up in a corner or twisting to look over their shoulder while they're trying to play their music. All that kind of contortion can make it really hard for the student to be successful in the short run and can cause stress injuries in the long run. So ask your students if there are any materials they need. If it's fatiguing for them to look at the screen and they'd prefer a hard copy of the music, ask them if they prefer a printed copy. If you'd like, I can print one out and hand it out meet you at school to distribute that, or I can mail it to you. If it would be helpful for them to have a second music stand so they can have their Chromebook on one and their sheet music on another. If you don't want to purchase a second music stand, let me know and I can loan out a music stand from the school for your student to use. See if your student's instrument is the right size, see if their chair is the right height, see if their technology is working for them during class. All those things can help to remove the barriers that make class frustrating for them so that they can have a more comfortable and enjoyable time in class. Help your student to plan ahead for the day's schedule of classes and events. Help them develop a planner to track assignments and due dates. And that planner is whatever works best for the student, whether it's electronic or paper. But getting organized really helps middle school students to be successful. Help them with proactive planning. Help them to anticipate and prepare for what's coming next instead of always reacting to it. Help your student by giving them your time. Listen to what they're working on, either live performance or by asking them to share their videos that they're recording. Take a moment to encourage them. Even if you're not a musician, you can tell them something that they did good or something sounded good. Take a moment to ask what they're working on. Ask them what they really like playing. Ask them what they can do better now than they could do a year or two ago. Again, there's so many things that are frustrating these days. And so giving your students your time and your encouragement and celebrating every small victory really means a lot. And communicate. When something goes well, communicate. When you or they have questions about specific techniques or assignments, or have material or learning needs, if there are any future plans that you have that may affect their class attendance or participation, if your student needs extra help, if you're not sure what an assignment is supposed to look like, just email. Feel free to email me, and also encourage your student to feel free to reach out either via email or Schoology message as well. Helping students learn to do that is an important step in helping them to develop a sense of self-advocacy. And also having open lines of communication with teachers can help to remove a lot of the fear and anxiety that sometimes go with schooling. Also, having the ability to communicate with their teachers will help students as they go on into high school and college and the workforce. So with that, thank you for your time in watching this video, and thank you for supporting your strings student at a time when you may not have been sure what orchestra would look like this year. I hope we get to all be together in a concert hall again sometime soon once it's safe. But until then, take care.